All right, everyone, we are back once again for yet another roster review. This will be the last one for this season. The next will probably have to wait until the next off season. But it was nice. It was really nice to get involved more with my community and also look at some really awesome rosters and some mods that I really wish I had. But without further ado, today we're going to take a look at Gladiator. He is a Kyber contender. I'm pretty sure that means he's taken top 10 in one of his divisions, which is really impressive. Even the lower divisions taking top 10 is quite the feat. He does also have 450,000 banners in Division 3, which is really high because you have to remember in the lower divisions 3 and below, you can't exactly get as much as the higher divisions because you don't have as many zones. But enough with that. Let's go ahead and take a look at his roster. There are a few things that need to be discussed today. We're going to look at modding for two teams. We're going to look at some plans post Sith Eternal Emperor, which is his current farm project. And we're also going to look at GEC history a bit. And two of them are kind of involved. That would be the farming plan and how GEC functions. So first, let's go ahead and talk about modding. The two teams that we're going to look at today for modding, the first one is going to be Galactic Republic. As Galactic Republic, the Padme team is rocking. It's full R7s, which is ridiculous. It's going to be very, very effective for what he's going to be using against. Me and Gladiator talked. He told me that he uses and he wants to continue to use his Padme versus Gas 501st teams. This is awesome because this is a counter that I've been using since the Gas meta started. This is the counter that I even continue to use today because with the tournament mechanics, it's actually become even more consistent if you have the modding down. So without further ado, let's look at Padme and see where the modding's at. Padme is actually perfect. I don't just say this because we literally have the same exact speed. Like both of our Padmes are 291. She has a ridiculous amount of health, and she has well over 100 speed. This is what your Padme should look like. Offense, defense, potency, not really that important. She needs to have lots of health, and she needs to be very fast. We have all health primaries on these. We have all at least plus 10s, plus 15, plus 20s, etc. There's no improvement there. Very good. General Kenobi, we have almost the right idea, but the sets are a little wonky. He's got a speed set, which isn't necessarily bad, but it's not best. General Kenobi would really do better with defense mods and health mods, especially in light side territory battles. I know this wasn't the question, but in the light side territory battles, you don't want GK fast because that really allows the Droidicas to get an upper leg on him with how their damage is used. Also, tenacity isn't necessary just because of how Padme's kit works. There's only like one or two scenarios where that's important. So I would definitely consider switching out the set. The mods within themselves are good. Like the overall idea here is working pretty well. He could be higher health, and he could also be higher defense just to be able to take those hits. But all in all, it's not the worst thing in the world to do. You don't want him super slow, too. If you can get him in the range of 80 or 90, that will be best. So maybe some defense or health sets there. One thing it is important to know on General Kenobi and Anakin, if you're going to change mods on them, even directly after this, make sure they're 6E. Them going first in Negotiator mirror matches in Fleet Arena is incredibly important, or even in GAC. I've made this mistake, unfortunately, before, and it's cost me, where I took a mod off of General Anakin, I put a 5A mod on him, it decreased his speed, and it threw a mirror match off for me. It did not end well. So make sure if you do switch mods on him, get the 6E mods on him. This is Grandmaster Yoda. Grandmaster Yoda, he really needs the most help, I think, here. When you're using Grandmaster Yoda under Padme, different from Jedi Knight Revan, and for most comps, actually, he needs to be modded almost entirely for speed and health. We currently have an offense set on him, with quite a bit of an offense loaded up, crit damage. He's not really the damage dealer here, especially against Gas. The damage doesn't come from the damage dealers. The damage comes from the courage. And even against other teams, Jedi Anakin and Ahsoka, they hit hard enough. What Yoda's position is here is his position is to circle around so many turns to constantly spread out 30% protection up and foresight on top of the protection up so that they don't start losing it immediately. He's very, very effective at this, and it's really beneficial if you can get him well above 310 speed. And he's actually really fast right now. He's already over 285 because his base speed is just so high. But I would consider changing this out for a speed set. Like maybe move the speed set over here from General Kenobi, depending on the stats. And also health primaries. He's still on the Padme team, which means he gains all the benefits they do with health, and yet his health is pretty low. So if possible, move him over to a complete speed set with these 3 mods being health primary: the circle, the cross, and the triangle. So that's Grand Master Yoda, pretty simple. Ahsoka Tano and Jedi and Anakin are actually really simple too. Long story short, switch their mods. Ahsoka Tano, when you're using her against Gas has a mechanic that you can't crit when you attack out of turn. What that means is every single time Ahsoka is assisting on her basic, due to her unique and daring Padawan that makes her assist every single time a Galactic Republic member uses their special ability, she's never going to crit. So all this crit damage that is on these crit damage mods or on this crit damage triangle is just in vain. Like, it's completely going to waste. The only time that it's being used is when you use your big hit, which, again, that's great. But the vast majority of damage coming from this team is coming from courage. It's not coming from the damage dealers. So that's my big, I guess, critique here, is she should be modded more for just straight offense, especially with an offense set. And I said it earlier, and I'll say it again, you could probably just switch out her and Jedi Anakin's mods. Because if you look at this, he could use crit damage mods more, because the Padme team, she doesn't offer any offense and she doesn't offer any crit damage. So you're just looking purely off of Jedi Anakin's damage. And when you're in this debate between offense or crit damage, if there's not something specific like crit immunity out there, you want to focus on having a high base and a high multiplier. The base being offense, the multiplier being the crit damage. Jedi Anakin, the only thing in his kit that gives him any more offense is this unique that gives him 100% more damage if all Galactic Republic allies, or if someone goes below 50% health, if there's all Galactic Republic allies present. And that being said, you want that damage to be stacked on top of this crit damage, not necessarily on top of just straight offense, because then the base becomes really high and the multiplier isn't as high. And just naturally, crit damage is higher than offense. Offense, I believe, is 20% and crit damage is 30%. So if you don't have any of these other factors through uniques or leaderships adding an offense or crit damage, you generally just want to go crit damage. And there's no one on the Gas team that is immune to crit, so you don't have to worry about that. So again, it's a pretty simple process. Maybe just switch his and Ahsoka sets. I will say his mods are pretty good other than that. Like, he could use more health than he has protection right now, but the speed's pretty good. That's really helpful in mirror matches, actually, that speed, because most of them are a little bit faster and you want him to just be just a bit slower. So that's the Padme team. Again, pretty simple. Padme's great. General Kenobi could be slower and have defense. Jedi Master Yoda could be faster, a lot faster, and then maybe switch the sets between Anakin and Jedi Anakin. Just try not to drop Anakin's speed too much more. Ahsoka was lower, but she doesn't really matter because she gets 50 speed from her unique. So that's the first team. The second team we're going to look for when it comes to modding is going to be Separatists. Separatists, not the GG Separatists. So we're going to be looking at Newt, Dooku, and Ventress. Newt, we really want to focus more on potency, health, and speed on him if possible. One of the big difficulties, though, is he's gear 11, and that means we can't put the health primaries up to 16%. So it actually might be more beneficial to go protection. If you're going to keep him at gear 11, stack him up with more protection. If you're going to take him up to gear 12, get these health mods up to 60 and stick them on them. They make a huge difference. Crit chance really doesn't do anything for you. I'm guessing that's for the 16 speed. But Dooku doesn't need to be Newt doesn't need to be super incredibly fast with just how Dooku works on his team. I had Dooku on the mind there. So yeah, I would go for more health-based, more protection-based, depending on where you want to keep his gear. Don't worry as much about speed. Make him more for survivability, and get some potency on him. How his kit works, and actually how the whole team works, is based off of this extortion that lowers their speed by 30%, and it also increases our own speed by 15%. This is important because if you can also land speed down through this move right here, the enemy's team speed gets reduced dramatically. You have the 50% from speed down, you have the 30% from the unique, and you have the 15% from the leadership. It just makes your team completely outspeed there. If you have some player that's maybe not too experienced, it doesn't cleanse extortion once, it's often game over right then and there. So more potency for him and more survivability. And one of the reasons why I say more potency and more survivability and speed isn't as important is because of this way this Dooku is modded. This Dooku was modded I would say perfectly. I would say 100% perfectly. He's got a potency cross, which is really all Dooku needs to really give him that oomph to push him over to the fact that he'll never get resisted by anyone unless they have tenacity up or they get the 15%. He's also over 300 speed, which for Division 3 means that no soft counter is going to work against this team. They're going to have to bring in something heavy. They're going to have to bring in something like CLS. They're going to have to bring in something like Jedi Knight Revan. They're not going to be able to cheese it with something else because he's going to get going really quickly. He's going to stealth everyone. You're going to get stuck behind Zombie. That's something that he uses on his team. And then you're just going to kill Zombie. You're going to start stacking up Asajj Ventress's damage. You're going to pay off Extortion. You're going to give her more crit damage, etc. So Dooku's perfect. Very, very good. And the third one we want to look at here is actually Asajj. Asajj, again, is close. Asajj is pretty darn close to what we were looking at before. With her, I like crit damage. However, I don't really like the crit chance mods. With how her kit works and how with her having Zombie on the team, she's going to get 30% crit chance just from the zombie revives alone, and that's if they don't have to kill a zombie immediately. And I think they're going to have to with how fast Dooku is. So she doesn't really need the crit damage or the crit chance sets, but they don't hurt. But again, when we were talking about multiplying crit damage and offense, she gets a lot of offense from her unique right here. 15% offense every single time zombie dies. So that's her base. Her base is going to be continually increasing, so we want her to already start with a high multiplier. So crit damage is good. That's really my only complaint here. The other thing would be, I guess, take health mods 6E if you're going to use them, although this one doesn't have any speed on it. I don't know if I like that at all. Yeah, she's got pretty low speed. She doesn't really need speed that much, but I would make the argument that she needs more than 66. If you can get her more to 80 into the 80 or 90 range, that would be preferred. So that's going to be it for her. That's going to be for the Separatists in general. So yeah, Dooku's awesome. Asajj needs to have more crit damage, specifically on a triangle, maybe a little more speed. And Newt needs to have more survivability and more potency. But all that being said, now we're going to go ahead and look at GC history and also what do we do post-C. So one of the things that you will need to look at when you're planning for GC is your leaders. Again, this is for 5v5, for 3v3. I've talked about this before. You need to look what leaders you have. And one of the things interesting about Gladiator's roster here is the very top half is like Division 1 level, and the second you pass these 3 bars, you kind of get into what looks like Division 4 or 5. Like there's a pretty big drop-off. And when we're considering what to do with the roster, that needs to be taken into account. Because what's happening right now is Gladiator's taking a lot of these big teams on offense, which, to be fair, is sometimes needs to because some of them get split up, like Malik will get split off from Darth Revan, or maybe 2 Jedi teams will get separated out. Anyways. But there ends up a lot of this gets left on defense, and it really can't hold up against much of anything. So my recommendation would probably be to leave this Darth Revan. Start leaving this Darth Revan on defense in addition to the lower geared. Because he's 345 speed, you're not going to find a faster Darth Revan than that in Division 3. I would make the argument this is probably the fastest Darth Revan in all of Division 3. The only thing that you might want to do before doing that is maybe switch some over to actually Bastila Fallen. In 5v5, having a faster Bastila Fallen is actually more valuable than Darth Revan. In 3v3, not so much, but in 5v5 it is. If you can get her closer to maybe 315, maybe 320, you're not going to find anyone who's going to get past that. And if the enemy opponent or the opponent doesn't have a good gas, you pretty much just won the match right there by putting him on defense. So that would be my suggestion for that one, particularly for GAC. But next, coming up with GAC and also for plans after C, you need to start developing some of these kind of middle tier teams that are always going to have some worth. And the first one, and this is a team I love, this team I always talk about, is going to be Rebels. This team, you actually already have them all starred, which is great. You have CLS, you have 3PO, you have Han, you have Chewbacca, you even have their Zetas, which is cool. You just need to get the gear on them. Like, this is first priority as soon as you get Sith Eternal Empire or Emperor. You need to get all these guys up to at least gear 12, if not gear 13. I would actually say, if we're looking at rounding out your roster here, go for gear 12. And you might even want to consider going after 3PO and Chewie here, just because I don't know how long it's going to take you to get that gear. I don't know what your crystal income is like or how your play method is. But if you know that this is going to take you a few months to do, you might as well farm him as well on top of that and replace old Ben or whoever it is that would go in his place. So that would be my suggestion for what to do afterwards. And also after that, start going for the 501st. Whether this be under shock or under gas, I don't care. This is a great team, and they're actually not, okay, there's a caveat to this. They're not too hard to gear. Rex is one of the easiest gear 12s in the entire game. He's a very, very easy gear 12. Echo is not far behind him. Ark's not great, and Fives is super difficult. But if you can get Fives' tactical awareness Zeta, if you can get him that tactical awareness Zeta, you can keep maybe Arc really weak and get Echo and Rex up to gear 12. This can be a really, really, really effective team on both offense and defense. Probably more so offense because you want the 5 sacrifice, but maybe that can replace where your Jedi or your Darth Revan is having to come in and just smash some teams. And also, again, we're going to round out your roster more. If you do eventually get gas and you're still in Division 3, you might even be able to split gas clones and shock clones between 2 teams on offense. So that's going to be my recommendation. That we went through those 2 teams. GAC, start leaving Darth Revan on defense would be my suggestion. Nest could probably go to gear 12. Also, one thing I saw you were doing a lot of Nest solos without Kira. I would use Kira. I would start using Kira more. It just makes the battle much more comfortable with being able to recover protection, also having the 30% offense. So that's going to be about it for today, guys. Thanks for watching as always, and stay awesome.